Hey, it is John Terry, the Black Belt Leader, and welcome to the Be a Black Belt Leader podcast, where each week I am sharing leadership insights to help you not just be a better leader, but to be a Black Belt leader and to master who you are and what you do. I want to thank you for joining me. And today I want to talk about the lesson of the ladder. And I want to introduce you to someone you perhaps haven't heard of before, and that's the name Cavett Roberts. Now, that may not mean a whole lot to you unless you're a motivational speaker or you were privileged to hear that individual speak in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and into the early 90s. Cavett Roberts was the founder of the National Speakers Association, and he's considered by many in the speaking industry to really be the standard bearer of motivational speaking. He was the individual, if you were a speaker in the 60s and 70s and 80s, that you wanted to emulate and you wanted to be like, if you wanted to be known as a speaker. And Cavett Roberts was really considered the standard bearer of excellence when it came to motivational speaking throughout much of the late 20th century. Now, a little bit of backstory on Mr. Roberts and how he got to where he was, and it's kind of an interesting story. After completing law school, he moved to Arizona and established himself as a very successful lawyer. But he wasn't content just to be a lawyer, so he became also a successful insurance agent. And not being content with that, he also became a successful real estate sales professional. Reminds me much of my grandfather, who was growing up as a lawyer himself, went back to school to become a doctor, and later on became involved in banking and helped establish one of the first banks in Fort Smith, Arkansas. But back to the story on Cavett Roberts. One of the unique things about Cavett Roberts was his oratory skills that made him the person that he was and the admiration of so many people. He honed those in the courtroom. He honed his speaking skills, not just interacting with the courts, but in his interactions with the public as a sales professional selling insurance and real estate. Now, as a side note, and I don't want to spend a lot of time here in today's lesson, but maybe another time, Cavett Roberts made a living with his words. All three industries he was engaged in, the legal industry, the financial industry, and the real estate industry, all three of those require that you use words to make money. He did that well, and as a result of that, he was very, very successful. Cavett Roberts understood early on that words are worth money. And if you use words well, you can be highly successful in influencing other people and attracting more success to you. Now, Cavett Roberts started on the professional speaking circuit in the early 1960s. And about 10 to 12 years later, 1972, he won the coveted Golden Gavel Award from Toastmasters International. 1 year later, 1973, he established the National Speaker Association. And today, thousands of people have been trained through the NSA to be more effective speakers. Now, one of the things I admire about Cavett Roberts, and one of the most memorable observations he had about life, was the topic of attracting success. Now, this is something that Cavett Roberts understood firsthand. Why? He'd been a successful lawyer. He'd been a successful insurance agent. He'd been a successful real estate professional. And then taking those skills and what he learned from that, became highly successful as a motivational speaker who inspired and challenged hundreds of thousands of people through the spoken word. Now, you and I, we probably all heard the expression climbing the ladder of success. But have we really given thought to what that means? How do you truly climb the success ladder and get to the top? And once you get there, how do you stay there? Now, this was something Cavett Roberts understood. He talked about it, and he shared in a lot of his motivational talks. He understood the significance of this very simple but very profound statement. And let me share with you his observations. And I love the analogy that he uses. He compares your vocation, what you do to make a living, to a ladder. Here's what Robert said. We know a ladder is nothing more than a tool. It's just an instrument to use in order to arrive at some destination. Likewise, Robert said, a job is just a tool that you can use to amass and arrive at your goals in life. Now, to me, that is very poetic, and it's very symbolic as you think about the lesson of the ladder. And that's where we want to spend some time in today's Black Belt leadership training. There's an interesting parallel between ladders and what we do to earn a living and the things we do to move ourselves towards our goals, our objectives, and our aspirations in life. It's a powerful leadership lesson that every black belt leader in life needs to fully grasp and fully understand, because when you do, this is going to help you not just reach your goals, but exceed your goals and attract more success into your life. So what do we learn from the lesson of the ladder? First is this: a ladder is designed to move you upward. A ladder is designed from get you where you are to where you want to be. Now, think about a ladder. You put a ladder up on the side of a building, the side of a house, the side of something that you want to scale, and where are you going to start? You're going to start at the bottom and you're going to work your way to the top. You're going to make progress with each step you make, but it's not like you lean the ladder against the wall and it just magically happens. A ladder is designed to move you upwards, to get you from where you are to where you want to be. Now, I thought about that in my own life, in the ladder of success and the many ladders I've had an opportunity to climb. And as I've thought back over the many things I've done and looking back at the lesson of the ladder, what have I learned? Well, let me just give you a little backstory on what I've learned and really what the lesson of the ladder has said to me. And then you can draw the own inference in your own life. You know, as I've shared in previous podcasts, I had my first job mowing grass in my neighborhood at the age of 13. Now, I've had a lot of other jobs since then. You know, thinking back over all the things I've done from the time I started working at 13 years of age up until where I am today, and I've done a lot of things. I've sold clothes. I've driven a school bus. I've worked for a pest control company. I ran a plastic bagging machine for the poultry industry, helping create the bags that they actually stuff the chickens in to ship them all over the country. I've sold electrical supplies. I've worked in the commercial lighting business. I've sold insurance and investments. I've been a sound engineer. I owned a successful sound reinforcement company all through my college career. I've been a successful martial arts school owner and instructor. I've been a children's pastor, a youth pastor, a college campus pastor, a senior pastor, and an executive pastor. I've been a coach, an author, a speaker, a trainer. I've done a lot of things in my life. I've built and started several companies, some not so successful, and some that were and still are highly successful. Now, looking at the lesson of the ladder and understanding that a ladder is designed to move you upwards, here's what I've discovered about me. And as you reflect back on what you've done in your career, you're going to see the same thing, the same lessons learned if you're willing to learn the lessons. Every one of those jobs I've either held or every business I've started, all of those varied experiences have prepared me for the work I've done for the past 3 decades of my life: speaking, coaching, and training. Every job I've done, every position I've held, every business I started, every company I've worked for, each and every one of those was possible because of the lessons I learned in what happened before, the skills I honed in what happened before. All my prior vocational experience prepared me for the next opportunity that appeared before me and gave me the opportunity to evaluate it, and if it made sense, to seize it and take advantage of it and to maximize my opportunity there. Everything I put my hand to do from the time I was 13 years old until where I am today, celebrating the 32nd anniversary of my 29th birthday, every one of those things has continued to move me upward one step at a time. Each job, each position, each new business started one rung on the ladder. And I think if you and I were to be honest, it's been the same for every single one of us. Every one of us have learned, grown, matured, and we become better at who we are and what we do because of the very jobs we've had throughout our lives. But chances are we all started at the bottom, because that's where most of us start, and we worked our way up to the level of experience and the level of success that we are experiencing in our lives today. Now, the second lesson of the ladder is this: a ladder is ascended one rung at a time. You don't skip the rungs on the way up. You can't bypass those, or it typically turns out pretty bad for you. You move up in a slow, meticulous process, one rung at a time. Now, this requires patience, and it requires you to be patient in the process. Now, the same is true of the careers and the vocation in our lives, whether it's a job that's preparing us for the ultimate vocation we want to pursue, our passion goal, or it's the fact that we're already in the passion project of our lives. Nobody starts out at the top. I remember when I got my first mowing customer at the age of 13, I went home and told my dad I was the CEO of my own business. Now, my dad, in his quick-witted humor, he smiled and he said, "Son, you're a CEO. Let me tell you what that means. As CEO, you are the chief equipment operator of your business. You have no employees. You're not leading anybody but yourself." And he reminded me that even though I owned this business and I was the CEO of my business, I was the chief equipment operator. What did that mean? I was the guy pushing the lawnmower. I was the guy edging the driveway, and I was the guy trimming the grass against the edge of the house with a pair of clippers, by the way. This was well before the day of the weed eater. Now, as a teenager starting your working career, you and I probably didn't walk into McDonald's, Chick-fil-A, JCPenney, Office Depot. You pick where you started. You didn't walk in the door and apply for the job of CEO. You probably didn't walk in the door and apply for the job of manager. You were happy to get whatever position they had open, whether it was working in the warehouse, driving a truck, greeting people as they came in the door, fixing and slapping burgers or chicken together, whatever it was that you were doing, stocking a shelf, you were there to learn what was required of you to earn a paycheck so that you could make some money to do the things that were important to you. What you didn't realize is you were developing your skill set as a leader the entire time that you were there. You likely started at the bottom, as did I. And what happened? You learned what needed to be done. You learned the minimum requirements to do the job and do it well. And then you had an opportunity to prove that you could go beyond just doing it well or okay or average, but you could, if you chose, to be exceptional, to hone your skills and stand out and get noticed so that when people pay attention to you, you get promoted. As you demonstrated competency and you got better at who you were and what you were doing, you got a promotion. What happened? You moved up the ladder one rung at a time. But the reverse of that is also true. You make a mistake and you get demoted. What happens? You took a step down the ladder. You didn't get the promotion because you're not giving that 100% of what you're doing and you're not standing out and being exceptional. You get stuck on the ladder and you don't get an opportunity to move forward. But when you make a mistake and get demoted, you went down a rung on the ladder, maybe two. Or if you got fired, what happened then? You got knocked off the ladder and you fell to the ground and you had to pick yourself up, dust your knees off, get back on the ladder and start climbing again. Now, thinking into this second lesson of the ladder, there's an important leadership point I want to make right here. Our success in life is progressive. As you and I, as we develop our skills, as we move past just being competent, being the white belt to the yellow belt to the orange belt, and moving up the ranks, we have an opportunity to move from just being mediocre and average to becoming a black belt master at our chosen art, profession, or trade, if we choose to do so. And as we've done that, more and more success has been attracted to us all along the way. And as we move past basic competency to black belt mastery, what happens? We get rewarded. And with that promotion comes what? New opportunities, new responsibilities, new obligations, and another chance to learn, to grow, and to attract more success to our lives. This is the progressive process of success, and it will continue to follow you the rest of your life as long as you keep climbing the ladder. Now, the third lesson of the ladder is this. You don't get to the top of the ladder by simply standing still and looking up to the top and crossing your fingers and hoping you'll magically be teleported to the top of the ladder and not do the work yourself. To get to the top of the ladder, to get to the top of your chosen art, profession, or trade, and be recognized as the world-class expert at who you are and what you do, it doesn't happen without work. It takes intentional, purposeful effort on your part to work your way up to the top, one rung at a time. You pick the world-class experts in any industry, and they have been very intentional and very purposeful throughout their lives to get them from where they were to where they are today. Because at any point, you and I, we can choose to stop climbing the ladder of success. And when we do, we don't go any higher. At that point, we no longer attract success into our lives, and we've decided this is as far as we want to go. And if that's where you are and you're comfortable with that, for you, you said, I have arrived. And once you have arrived and you stop climbing, remember the words of Ray Kroc, the founder of McDonald's. As long as you're green, you're growing. But once you're ripe, you start to rot. So you don't get to the top of the ladder by standing still. You've got to engage in purposeful, intentional effort to climb that ladder one rung at a time. Now, it's not just true in life. It's not just true in our leadership. It's true in our calling, in our vocation, in our passion. Understand this. Whatever we put our hands to do as a black belt leader in life, we need to do so with black belt excellence, being committed to being better today than we were yesterday, and knowing that tomorrow we're going to be better than we are today. Now, for this to happen, it requires that we be purposeful, that we be intentional, that we be deliberate about learning, growing, maturing, and improving ourselves on a consistent basis. That means we are dedicated as black belt leaders in life to a lifetime of learning. We are committing ourselves to a lifetime of personal growth and professional development. Now, sadly, looking at the world around us, there's a growing number of people in Western society today who want to experience all the trappings of success, but they don't want to do the work and they don't want to put the effort necessary to actually earn it. A constant conversation I'm having with employers today is the lack of work ethic in the people that they're looking to hire. This is especially true among late millennials, the younger group of the millennial demographic, and Generation Z in particular. You know, I was on a flight back just a couple of days ago from Salt Lake City, where I'd been out for a strategic sales and marketing planning conference. And as I'm flying back, I struck up a conversation with a gentleman who shared with me he is a commercial construction project manager. He was telling me about the different projects that they're building. And I said, what are you dealing with right now? What's your biggest challenge and struggle? And he looked and he said, John, it's hiring and retaining good quality people. And as I dug a little deeper in conversation with him, I said, tell me what's going on and what you're experiencing. And what he shared with me is the same story I've heard over and over from other business professionals all over the United States, in Canada, and in parts of Europe and much of the Western world. Here's what he said. He said, John, new hires having little or no experience in the construction industry are making these crazy demands like this. They want a flexible work schedule that they can choose what time they come to work, what their job description is going to look like, what they're going to do and not do, and when they're going to go home. They want to have, get this, in the construction industry, they want a stress-free work environment. They also want pay that wasn't commensurate to their experience. They wanted to be paid like an executive, yet they didn't know the first thing about doing the basics of the job. They simply wanted to show up and get paid. They wanted to be able to draw a paycheck and still be able to do nothing, stand around on their smartphones, watch money come into their bank account while they could still have an opportunity to interact with their friends, play games, and live their life in a virtual world. Now, Cavett Roberts, interestingly enough, saw this in the 1960s and the 1970s. Notice what he observed, and I want to pull a quote from one of his speeches. As he was talking about attracting success, and again, he was connecting and using this neat symbolism between jobs and ladders. And here's what he said. It requires effort to climb a ladder or to climb a job. In either case, it requires effort. But not all people are willing to make the sacrifice in effort that's required to reach the top of the ladder. And hear what he said. It requires effort to get to the top, but not everybody is willing to make the sacrifice in the effort needed to get to the top of the ladder. But then Cavett Roberts went on and he made a statement I thought is very interesting. Here's what he said. But I can't conceive of anyone having so little ambition in life that he or she doesn't want to go at least far enough up the ladder to escape the congestion at the bottom. Now, what would Cavett Roberts say if he were living today here in 2023 and looking at the state of the workforce in the United States and in much of the Western world? I think he would just shake his head and say, what has happened to the competitiveness of America? What has happened to the country that has been the envy of the rest of the world for generation after generation? The country that went out and led the world and recovered from the Great Depression, that went to war and conquered the enemy in World War II, that built the most successful economy that has ever existed. Why? Because of our competitive nature, because we understood what it means to win and what it means to be a winner. Today, we are disincentivizing competition. We are disincentivizing success, and we are teaching a generation of people that mediocre, lackluster, and average is okay. I even heard this week on the news that there are a number of school districts that are adopting this new grading system, that there aren't going to be deadlines required. Students can simply turn in homework if and when they're done. They take tests only if and when they're ready, and they have till the end of the school year to get their work done. What they've said is this is going to help us eliminate more D's and F's. Well, what gets rewarded gets repeated. And if you're not going to prepare these young lives to deal with the competitive nature of life that we're in today, where are our businesses going to be if you're not going to be striving for excellence in the future? I don't understand this mindset, and I kind of have to agree with Cavett Roberts that I can't conceive of anyone with so little ambition. They don't want to climb far enough up the ladder of success to at least escape the congestion at the bottom. But it appears that this is where education and our government systems want to leave people today, congested at the bottom. So what have we learned about this lesson of the ladder? If you want to experience more success and you want to attract more success into your life, you've got to learn the lesson of the ladder. 3 things. A ladder is a tool to get you from where you are to where you want to be. It's that way, not just in life and in your leadership, but in your career. If you are willing to do what is necessary to become a black belt master of your chosen art, profession, or trade, you're going to have an opportunity to rise to the top, to be recognized, to be rewarded, and to become a world-class expert and an authority figure that people seek out. Lesson number 2, a ladder can only be climbed 1 rung at a time. You can't just magically snap your fingers and make yourself an authority figure and expert or be world-class at who you are and what you do. To become world-class, to become a black belt leader in life requires you to be purposeful, to be intentional, to be deliberate. This requires patience. It is a process of becoming. It's not just true in life, it's true in your job, your career, your calling, and your leadership. The 3rd lesson of the ladder is this: you can't get to the top of the ladder simply by looking up. You've got to be willing to put forth the effort, to do the work, and start climbing. It requires that you grab the ladder with both hands, you put your feet on the rungs, and you start going up the ladder 1 rung at a time. Understand, black belt excellence and black belt mastery is not achieved overnight. Earl Nightingale said many, many years ago that it takes 10,000 hours at a minimum to become an expert at any specific topic. At any specific thing that you want to do, if you want to be known as an authority figure, an expert, a black belt master, it's going to take you a minimum of 10,000 hours to get there. And when you think about that, that's a lot of rungs on the ladder of success to climb. And it's a reminder that success is a journey. It's not a destination. Now, before we wrap up, I want to give you one last ladder observation. My friend and mentor, Dr. John C. Maxwell, often talks about ladders as he speaks about leadership. I've heard John say several times that one of the worst mistakes a leader can make is to climb the ladder of success only to discover that that ladder was leaning against the wrong wall. Now, while every ladder in life can take you upward, not every ladder in life is going to take you where you truly want to go. And if you climb the wrong ladder, what have you done? You've expended a lot of time, energy, and resources only to find yourself somewhere you really didn't want to be. And who wants to be where they don't want to be? Not me, and I don't think you do either. So before you start climbing the ladder of success, take some time to look up and see where that ladder is going to take you and ask yourself, is that truly where I want to go? Is that truly where I want to get to in the future before you ever grab the sides of the ladder and put your foot on the first rung and start climbing? It's important you do that before you start the climb. And if the ladder you're climbing now, you take a moment of reflection and you look forward and you see where that ladder's taking you, and you see it's taking you to a place you don't want to go, stop climbing up, start climbing down, and move the ladder to the wall you want to climb. Find the ladder you want to climb that's going to get you to where you want to go, and start climbing all over again. Life is a series of choices and consequences. And if we made a bad choice and we find ourselves experiencing a consequence that's not serving us well, we got to change our choice. That may mean relocating the ladder, moving it to another location and starting the climb, or maybe the choice we made is to stop climbing altogether and we've gotten stagnant. We've started to become rotten, and maybe it's just a rededication to climbing the ladder. Knowing that to be a black belt master at who we are and what we do is going to require climbing a minimum of 10,000 rungs to get to the top. And don't be surprised when you get to the top, you're going to find there's another wall and another ladder yet to climb. Remember, when you earn your first degree black belt in the martial arts, it's not the end of the journey. You haven't arrived. You've gotten to the point that you now, according to the founders of traditional karate, traditional taekwondo, traditional martial arts, when you get your black belt, it is a commitment to the fact that you have now become a serious student. And now the real training has only just begun. Don't forget that as you're climbing the ladder of success and you get to some point of mastery in your life and you think, I have arrived, I am the guy or the gal. Well, guess what? He who thinks he stands needs to take heed lest he fall, because it's very easy for someone to pull the rug out from underneath you, and all of a sudden you find yourself laying on the ground, or you get pushed off the ladder because arrogance gets in the way. So remember this: when we stop climbing, we stop succeeding. So the goal is to keep climbing the ladder. That's the last part of the lesson of the ladder, is we don't stop, because ultimately it is a ladder. We will never ultimately get to the top until we leave this earth. So for the black belt leader in life, there's always another ladder to climb. There's always another mountain to summit. Why? Because we've committed ourselves to a lifetime of learning, growing, maturing, and becoming a better version of who we are and what we do. That's why we keep climbing. And guess what? When we keep climbing, we keep winning, and we keep attracting more success into our lives. So here's my question for you as we wrap up today's podcast. Are you ready for more success in your life? Are you ready to attract more success and more opportunity, and to avail yourself as a leader to become all that you can be? If so, keep climbing the ladder. Are you ready to go to the next rung? Have you learned the lessons you need to learn on the rung you're on so you can step up to the next ladder? If you haven't, lean in and learn what you need to know, expand and grow and become a better version of you, and then take that next uncomfortable step and keep climbing. Why is that important? You are a leader. You're a black belt leader in life, and those that are following your example. So as you're climbing the ladder of success, don't forget you're also a Sherpa. You're a guide that are leading those that are following on their own journey of success as they follow you up the ladder of success. Hey, I hope you've learned a lot from this lesson of the ladder and you apply it to your life. I'm John Terry, the Black Belt Leader. Thanks for joining me, and have a great day.